A new journal poll is showing a slim majority of Albuquerque voters support the city's immigrant-friendly or sanctuary policy. New Mexico lawmakers will convene today for a special legislative session aimed at responding to steep federal budget cuts, though the scope of the agenda has stirred debate. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham joined state and local leaders on Tuesday to break ground on a new $15 million film studio at New Mexico State University's Arrowhead Center in Las Cruces. Mayoral candidate Daniel Chavez has suspended his campaign. And the University of New Mexico and University of Arizona have secured a $43.6 million 7-year federal grant from the National Institutes of Health to expand addiction treatment and rural health access in both states. From the Albuquerque Journal, this is the leading news. I'm Gino Gutierrez. It's Wednesday, October 1st, and I'll have more on those stories in a few moments, plus a look at Albuquerque's weather forecast on the other side of this break.
This episode is brought to you by the Kirtland Partnership Committee, supporting the Kirtland National Security Complex since 1995. With 109 mission sets across 52,000 acres, Kirtland Air Force Base sits at the heart of innovation, national defense, and global security. KPC is proud to champion military value, economic growth, and quality of life for service members and their families. Learn more at kpcabq.org. KPC, mission-focused, community-driven.
New Mexico lawmakers will return to the Roundhouse on Wednesday for what's expected to be a brief special session focused on the outsized impacts of the federal budget cuts to New Mexicans. With more on this, I'm now joined by the Journal's Capitol Bureau Chief, Dan Boyd. Dan, thank you so much for joining me.
You bet. Thanks for having me.
Dan, you and I have had a lot of conversations leading up to this special legislative session on exactly what lawmakers are going to cover here. But for our listeners that may not be too caught up, can you explain a little bit about what is expected to be discussed and passed?
Yeah, we've been talking about this special session and wondering about it for months now. And finally, on the doorstep, it'll start tomorrow at noon at the Roundhouse. And we've got even more clarity today about exactly what will be included on the agenda and what won't. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham issued the proclamation this afternoon, which kind of officially lays out what lawmakers are allowed to consider and to take up during the special session. She can really set the agenda. But interestingly, she's kind of deferred to Democratic leadership this year about what issues they kind of want to take up in the special session and what issues they would rather wait until the 30-day session. So I think likely that means that we'll avoid a scenario like last year's special session when the legislature adjourned without taking up a lot of the governor's proposals on crime. This year, as you mentioned, it'll be focused largely on healthcare and budget issues as New Mexico kind of prepares for this Federal Budget Act. And we're expecting about 5 different bills to be considered. That includes kind of a spending bill to, targeted at kind of backfilling some of these cuts, but then also a few other issues did make the cut. There's a bill that gives the state a little more leeway to set its own vaccine policies, kind of decoupling it from the federal government, and then one changing some eligibility requirements for participating in a medical insurance program. So, could have some policy changes as well to just the funding bill.
And Dan, one thing about this special legislative session that really has caused a lot of controversy is the agenda and the fact that it's so focused on these federal budget cuts. We talked before about how Republicans really wanted the agenda to expand to include crime, child welfare, and healthcare access. But as you mentioned, Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham really deferring a lot of the agenda setting to the top Democrats in the House and the Senate, and they've said that those issues will have to wait for the 30-day regular session.
Yeah, and I spoke with Senator Peter Work today. He's the Senate Majority Leader, the Democratic floor leader, and he really said, that some of those issues he thinks, do need a little bit more time to be fully vetted. But he also said, that part of the agreement they made with the governor that those issues you mentioned, including road funding, medical compacts, will not be included on the special session agenda. But he said legislators are prepared to kind of fast track them during the 30-day session with the goal of having a bill to the governor's desk by the halfway point of that 30-day session, which is an approach that they have used in past years. So we'll see if that materializes. But I think some of the Democrats have certainly heard and felt some of this criticism and, are kind of preparing to take action in response.
And one point of your story, Dan, that was very interesting is the fact that Republicans have said that they've been excluded from negotiations involving the special legislative agenda, still say they'll support some of the initiatives like funding boosts for local rural public radio and television.
Yeah, it's been a complaint that we've heard from Republicans in New Mexico that they've been kind of shut out of these negotiations between the governor's office and leading Democratic legislators. Kind of an ironic twist that it's kind of the reverse scenario from the federal government where Democrats say they've been kind of shut out of the talks about a government shutdown. That said, House Republicans did hold a media roundtable event this afternoon, and a few leading House Republicans said, they're inclined to support some of these proposals, including more funding for rural radio and television stations. I'll be interested to see where their kind of votes fall on some of these other healthcare bills as well, but they've certainly made the argument that they don't think some of these issues are as urgent intelligent, but when the rubber meets the road, so to speak, and these bills are put to a vote, it'll be interesting to see how their votes break down. And House Speaker Javier Martinez did tell me that he expects some bipartisan support for a lot of these measures.
And Dan, I'm sure lawmakers not very eager to stick around the Roundhouse very long for this special legislative session, especially when you consider the average daily cost that these run.
They do. And, over my time, I've learned that legislators usually do not like to be in special session. Last year's session was only 5 hours, last year's special session. I would expect this one will be longer than that. But a lot of legislators I've talked to said they expect it to go no longer than Friday at the latest, partially because with the balloon fiesta starting, it's hard to find an open hotel room in Santa Fe. So I think there's going to be some incentive for them to try to wrap up their work in a matter of days. And you mentioned the cost issue. I mean, special sessions in the past have averaged about at least $50,000 a day. So I think there's also kind of some pressure for them to try to wrap up this work without sticking around for too long.
And Dan, we know that crime, child welfare, healthcare access will all be issues that lawmakers will tackle during the 30-day session next year. But one thing that you and I have discussed several times in the past is that this final 30-day session is Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham's last as governor. So I'm sure there's some issues that she would like to check off her to-do list as well.
Yeah, actually, when I spoke with Senator Peter Wirth today, he mentioned that typically the final 30-day session for a governor has been kind of lame duck status, and sometimes we've seen with past governors not a lot getting done in those final 30-day sessions. I think the 30-day session for January is shaping up to be different. At least at this point, it does seem like there's an appetite to fast track, as I mentioned, some pretty high profile issues, the medical compacts, possibly juvenile crime. There's a road funding issue that both the governor and some legislators have acknowledged. So I would expect movement on some of those issues. I think when it comes to medical malpractice, crime, CYFD issues, the future's a little less certain on those. And I'm sure those issues have generated debate in the past, and I'm sure will as well in the 30-day session.
So the special legislative session set to begin today, and we'll just have to see how long it runs. Journal Capitol Bureau Chief Dan Boyd stopping by to share the latest with us. Thank you so much, Dan.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham congratulated the leadership of New Mexico State University as well as Doña Ana County's filmmaker community on Tuesday during a ceremonial groundbreaking for a new $15 million movie studio at the university's Arrowhead Center. With more on this development, I'm now joined by the Journal's Southern New Mexico correspondent, Algernon Damasa. Algernon, thank you so much for being here.
Hey, happy to be here, Gino.
So Algernon, obviously New Mexico known for its movie-making industry, and anytime a new studio opens up, it's going to garner a lot of attention. This one so much that the governor even made a trip down there. What can you tell us about this new development?
This is a more than 36,000 square foot soundstage, movie production facility, and some other storage and other facilities that will actually be built on part of the New Mexico State University campus. The campus has this kind of educational but also entrepreneurial sector, the Arrowhead Park campus. And the studio is going to be built there, not far from the headquarters of Doña Ana Community College's Creative Media Technology Center. And this is part of a long-range vision for a creative campus in this area that will comprise public media, the Creative Media Institute, film, game design, animation, and a number of related technological education and business centers on the campus.
And Algernon, one of the really cool things about this movie studio is that even though it'll be leased to a private operator, they'll be guaranteed paid internships for students, right?
Right. So the funding for this comes from the state via the Economic Development Department. And one of the stipulations is that there be a guarantee for students to have paid internship opportunities and other professional development. NMSU has, besides the Creative Media Institute, it has a theater department, it has game design, animation, film, video, television production facilities. And so they're seeing this as a way to train a local workforce to help establish an industry that is resident in the southern part of the state.
And aside from those paid internships, Algernon, this movie studio is also going to help generate some lease revenue for the university as well, so really helping out economically.
That's correct. There's a 12-year agreement that the Board of Regents actually approved last year. And at the end of 12 years, the university would be free to repurpose that property if they wanted to. But I foresee probably that this is going to take root and still be in use in the long term.
And Algernon, before I let you go, I just want to talk a little bit about the governor's presence at this groundbreaking and what she shared with the crowd.
Right. I mean, she actually really paid tribute to the competitive proposal that NMSU made, because UNM had also put in a proposal for some state funding to support film-related investments there. But she said that, you know, there's a filmmaking community in Las Cruces that also includes Senator Jeff Steinborn, a Democrat from Las Cruces, who is the president of Film Las Cruces, the city's film office. And she said that the city really just made an impressive proposal about its long-range plan as an economic development vector for the film industry. And she said, keep going, basically, that this is the kind of development that she wants to see statewide, and she was happy to come down here and celebrate it.
So a new $15 million film studio on its way to NMSU's Arrowhead Center in Las Cruces, sure to be a boon for the movie-making industry in southern New Mexico. Journal Southern New Mexico correspondent Algernon Damasa with the latest. Thank you so much, Algernon.
Ciao, Gino.
In other headlines from the newsroom, mayoral candidate Daniel Chavez has suspended his campaign after polling at just 1% in a recent Journal poll, far behind incumbent Tim Keller at 29% and challenger Darren White at 16%. Despite his withdrawal, Chavez's name will remain on the ballot since the announcement came after the dropout deadline. His exit narrows the race to 6 candidates, with 37% of voters still undecided. Chavez is also facing a misdemeanor battery charge, accused of inappropriately touching a former staffer. He pleaded not guilty in August and is scheduled for trial on October 14th. Chavez maintains the allegations did not factor into his decision to quit the race. The University of New Mexico and University of Arizona have secured a $43.6 million 7-year federal grant from the National Institutes of Health to expand addiction treatment and rural health access in both states. The funding supports the Southwest Center for Advancing Clinical and Transitional Innovation, a joint research institute focused on turning scientific discoveries into patient care. Key priorities include expanding opioid care to rural hospitals, evaluating a new addiction consult service at UNM Hospital, improving clinical trial recruitment, and boosting community engagement. The grant will also fund training for early career scientists and create new research positions at both universities. Leaders say the partnership leverages the state's shared challenges, such as serving Native American and rural populations, and has already doubled the number of clinical trials available regionally. Despite recent NIH funding cuts under the Trump administration, officials see this reward as a major step in advancement for health equity and innovation in the Southwest. And in sports news, the New Mexico United will continue playing at Isotopes Park at least until 2029, while its long-awaited soccer-specific stadium is developed at Balloon Fiesta Park. The club signed a lease expansion with the city as planning moves forward on the $30 million project, expected to seat 8,000 to 10,000 fans on the 6-acre site east of Sid Cutter Pavilion. Mayor Tim Keller emphasized that the stadium won't interfere with the Balloon Fiesta since it's in an existing no-fly zone. Site assessments and infrastructure planning are underway, though no completion timeline has been set. The United, which plays in the USL Championship, missed the league's 2026 deadline for a dedicated stadium, but officials say the league is flexible. A previous proposal for a downtown facility was rejected by voters in 2021, and neighborhood concerns about traffic, light, and noise at Balloon Fiesta Park were dismissed by a judge earlier this year. Owner Peter Trevisani said the stadium will be designed with cost-effectiveness in mind, potentially using modular construction. He envisions it as a community hub for future events, from professional soccer to high school championships, and even possibly a women's team, calling the project, quote, a legacy to build a better New Mexico. The leading news is powered by the journalism of the Albuquerque Journal. If you enjoy hearing all of the stories we share with you here daily, please consider becoming a digital subscriber to the Journal by utilizing the discount code in our show notes. Every subscription helps support local journalism and allows us to provide you with the news that matters to you. Now taking a look at Albuquerque's weather forecast. Today you can expect sunny skies with a high near 83, and as for this evening, mostly clear with a low around 55. To keep up with all the latest news from the Albuquerque Journal, you can visit our website at abqjournal.com. That's the leading news. I'm Gino Gutierrez. We'll be back tomorrow.